All right. Go ahead and call our Sherwood City Council work session to order. It is April 1st. April Fool's Day.
So we don't really have a meeting?
For the whole meeting. Never know what might happen. Anyways, we got three items on our work session schedule for tonight. First is our tannery site cleanup project. Then we have a Sherwood Chamber of Commerce business plan update. And then we're going to talk housing bills that are happening down in Salem right now. So we'll go ahead and get started on the first one. Jason, take it away.
Thank you. Jason Waters, city engineer. We're here today, well, twofold to give you an update on the tannery site cleanup project. And also, this is part of our community involvement plan for the project. So we have a publicly advertised meeting and we're here to give you an update, and we'll be back again in the future. So we just want to have the consultant let you know where we're at and where we're headed, and then answer some questions if you have them. But again, we'll be back several times throughout the project. We have actually several projects going on here. We'll have an exhibit that will show you, in addition to this tannery site cleanup project, that will go over a sewer project. We have a regional storm facility, street improvements, and site preparation. So we're really trying to get this project completed as efficiently as possible, potentially do some of the sewer trunk line project with the tannery site cleanup. We're working with EPA on whether we can add some of that in. But I'm going to turn it over to John Kuiper with WSP USA. There are qualified environmental professional consultants that we've hired to run the project. And he's going to provide us an update on the project. And really, we're just wanting to let you know when we'll be out there cleaning up the site, and ASAP is kind of our schedule for it. Further, I can hit the slides for you, John.
All right.
Well,
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, thanks, everyone. Photo here is one that Jason provided from the city, a nice aerial shot that shows the tannery. I know some of you have actually walked the site when the EPA grant came in, but here you can see a couple of the wastewater treatment lagoons and the wetland and Rock Creek in the background. So, and then in the foreground, kind of underneath where the letters are, the tannery cleanup, former Frontier Leather, would be some split hide landfill. So really what the cleanup is about is there's metals contaminated hides. So chromium, a little bit of lead, but it's mostly chromium that was buried on the site, and for anyone that doesn't know. And then you have the wastewater treatment lagoons, and so you've got some contaminated sediments in the wastewater treatment lagoons, and then outside of the berms where there were breaches, you have a little bit that's made it into the floodplain of Rock Creek. So at the end of the day, there's maybe close to 30,000 cubic yards worth of contaminated hides, soil, sediment that needs to be hauled off. And so that's, yeah. Tim.
And those treatment lagoons were created by the hide company.
Yes.
Those weren't city facilities.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, they didn't get any of the lead from the lead recycling battery plant.
And that isn't an issue for this part here. So, yeah. So this is really just chromium is what we're chromium and hides. And it's not human health risk, it's eco risk. So it's not as bad as other stuff.
I have a picture when we visited out there and you walked out and then it dropped down. If you went down below it, the ledge, it was just these stacks of hide that were sticking out.
Yeah. So as Jason mentioned, part of what needs to be done as part of the EPA grant is having a community involvement plan. So that's what has perpetrated this. The community involvement plan was approved by EPA a couple of months ago. The CIP priorities are, one, to educate the public about brownfields cleanup and redevelopment. Not everyone understands what brownfields are. Ensure the public understands project objectives and the steps that are involved in the cleanup. We want to focus on the neighborhood that's close to the site, areas of where people are going to come through, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be most impacted. They're going to see the dump trucks and wonder what's going on. So we want to make sure that everyone has a good heads up and doesn't get surprised. And then gaining input from project partners, council, et cetera. And so to summarize the community involvement, and there's a plan that's posted on the SharePoint site. So anyone that wants to look through the whole plan can do so. But really the actions are going to be through social media, the city's website, flyers, work sessions like right now, direct community outreach activities, community partner engagement, and then for the timeline, this is the very first activity, this work session, April 1st. And then it's my understanding that there will be information at the cruise in Sherwood. And then as the year progresses, the Robin Hood Festival, Music on the Green, movies in the park, next year, community services fair and et cetera.
A quick question on that.
Yeah.
And I think you know this, John, this is part of a much bigger project in terms of moving City Hall and then opening up some land in our downtown core for redevelopment. When we do that outreach, or we.
You mean public services?
Public services, sorry. When we do that, public works, when we do that outreach, are we gonna kind of show that whole picture?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Awesome.
And there's a slide where we talk a little bit, and Jason will talk a little bit about that. Next slide. So to that point, the tannery cleanup is really one of 6 projects in this area that share a nexus, and cleanup of the tannery is really key to allowing the other projects to move forward. And so Jason, I'll let you.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. And part of, we did receive an EPA grant back in 2017 that had community involvement and some visioning. And that's kind of what this project has included, with some finishing off of the visioning for the public services facilities. And so in addition to that, we've got the projects listed here that are not just immediately adjacent, but they're actually overlapping with the cleanup site. So you can't complete one without cleaning up the site. So these are all interrelated, but we have the Oregon Street improvements, which if you've been here at the city has been probably on our books to complete for nearly 10 years now waiting for this project. So that's a project that we've got in line to complete after this is done. We have a regional stormwater facility right below Brickyard Terrace that overlaps with the project that we can't complete until the site's cleaned up. So that's an integral part with the site plan that's getting approved. We believe we may have to do 2 different facilities, one on one side of Brickyard Terrace on the east, and another one that may be more like swales and typical like street storm facilities on the west side of Brickyard Terrace. So that's something that we're working on right now, analyzing some of the options there for and this is tied to the environmental cleanup permits from the tannery site cleanup itself. We also have a CWS sanitary sewer line, which you guys will know as the Rock Creek Sanitary Trunk Line Phase B project, and which used to be out into the creek in the floodplain, but CWS approached us about potentially moving that up into the site, which we found is an opportunity to partner up and, you know, relocate the sewer line out of the creek. So that's what we're trying to do, is place that sewer line in the outer there's a lagoon that goes around, or a berm, and we're going to try to place the sewer line in that and complete some of that project with the tannery site cleanup if they'll let us, so we can be as efficient as possible. And then of course we've got Ice Age, the regional trail, which we currently show out on the street. There's been some discussions about potentially that following the sewer trunk line behind to the north, more closer to the floodplains. And then of course we've got long-term plans for like a public works facility, public services, potentially community room, conference room, something like that. So that's kind of why we want to have the public outreach, to kind of get comments on those aspects. So this project is, I think we're estimating around 30 million for the public works facility. So more or less, we'd love to get this site prepped for that, but obviously we don't have $30 million to complete the public works facility. But these other projects, this is funded. This is partially funded. So these top 3 projects, we're definitely hoping to rope those in with the overall project. So lots of projects going on here. And then just for kind of the developable site for the public works facility, Oregon Street improvements, Could have some swales along here for storm treatment. We're looking at potentially a regional facility in this area on this side. It could be a natural stream. So it looks like more like a natural facility, but it's not like a fenced swale. This is where CWS is, the trunk line for sewers out here right now. And they're wanting to relocate it up into our uplands here, which is a great opportunity, and what we'd have an access road over that and potentially trail. So that's kind of the stuff we're gonna look at over the next few months.
It's buried deep or? I mean, cause it's,
Yeah, deep, but more accessible. So you won't have the manholes out in the middle of the floodplain, but there are one or two that could be about 20-25 feet deep, but the rest will be, you know, within a reasonable 10-foot deep manhole.
and isn't there a high voltage power line that cuts across?
Yeah, there is. It cuts right across here over to the Walmart store. So that's something that we'll have to keep in place, even though the rest of the overhead lines will get underground, but there could be an overhead transmission line. But that's one of the things we're working with PGE on, because we know it's an environmentally sensitive area and it'd be nice to not have the overhead lines gone this way. So yep, there is a exempt.
So weird that that's there.
Yeah, that goes all the way over to 12th and Sherwood Road. I don't know the exact route, but yeah, it is a pretty random, like it's about 60 kilovolts, and technically per our code, it stays overhead, but we're working with PG to underground that portion, so we don't have, you know, have all the environmental enhancements here and then have these overhead lines stay overhead. We really would like to get those underground, at least to this point here, and have them stay overhead between here and here.
And if we get a path there, is there any way to connect it to anything, or is it? I mean,
Well,
it's the railroad, right?
Yeah, challenges through the railroad here, but that's one thing we're investigating, kind of how would we get it back connected over here? Because this has been discussed kind of loosely, putting a regional trail back here, but in our plans, it's shown along like an on-street trail.
Yeah.
So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater on the opportunities for the regional trail. So especially if we're putting a trunk line there, so
Yeah.
something to, you know, snuff out through the public involvement. All right, back to John.
All right, thanks, Chase. So the cleanup steps and the time frame. So we had the DEQ kickoff meeting. We've met with EPA. That's all taken care of and complete. And EPA, DEQ, city, WSP, everyone's on the same page, lockstep. We know where we're headed. Community involvement plan, of course, it's complete, and that's what this is part of. We had to put together a sampling and analysis plan for PFAS. Some of you may have heard of PFAS, forever chemicals in the news. DEQ's required some sampling for that, just because sometimes it's associated with tanneries, probably not this one, but there's some sampling that needs to be done for that. We are expecting that to be done towards the end of this month. Right now, we're just getting an archaeology firm under contract so that there can be some monitoring. That's something that SHPO has required. So again, I think that'll happen before the end of the month. And then it's off to the races. It's getting a remedial action plan together, project design, permitting. There needs to be a joint, what do we need to, we have a joint permit application. We'll need site development permit, we'll need erosion control permit. So there'll need to be some permits, and we're putting together a matrix to make sure nothing gets dropped off the edge or forgotten, so we don't have to circle back. So there's the permits, and then if there's no hiccups, we hope to basically be moving to bidding documents, contractor selection shortly after the 1st of next year. Hopefully, we'll be doing the excavation of the contaminated media in next summer. There's an advantage to waiting for things to dry out a bit. When it's easier, you're not mucking around in the mud with your heavy equipment. And secondly, if the soils are dried out a little bit, they won't weigh as much. And a lot of the cost is going to be by the ton at landfills. So if we can have a little drier soil, that'll translate to saving thousands of dollars. And then moving into site restoration. Planning. And then community outreach just as part of the process as needed throughout the process. If it looks like we're coming up on some big events, then we would make sure to have community outreach. So like I said, no one gets surprised. Jason, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, we're working really closely with the Rock Creek Phase B team. They're a consorts, the consultant working on that, and we're having them reach out, work with us and going to meetings with CWS at the same time, because there's gonna be efficiencies with the permitting, and really those two projects are gonna work hand in hand so that we're getting the DSL permits together, and we're not having one project go in one way and then another one come in, because we want to be as efficient as possible, and that's what they prefer too, is to see the whole, big picture scenario. And yeah, that's really, we're just trying to overlap these projects and get them done as efficiently as possible. And then
this
if you want to
map,
go
yeah,
that.
this map here is, if you just focus on the hatched areas, the green hatched areas, and then the purple ones above. Those are our preliminary estimates of the areas where we'll need to excavate and how deep we're gonna have to excavate. And once we get the results of our sampling later this month, we'll refine this map, and we'll probably convert these nice smooth shapes to polygons that are easier for contractors to bid on. But really, it's the green is the upland area where it's mostly hides and soil, and then down in the lagoons, the blue purple area, that's where it's contaminated sediments. So those are just sort of the areas, just to give a bit of a flavor of what's going to be pulled out. So I think that was all I had.
Yeah, and it's really gonna be an iterative process through the permitting. DSL is gonna have a lot of say in where things are gonna get moved around, and if we're gonna have our sanitary trunk line through here, DSL is gonna have a lot to say about the mitigation and the way this looks in the end. So we'll be back to present kind of the final site plan, which is going to influence this regional storm facility, the trunk line, and it's really kind of, even though we know what we want to do, it's a bit in flux right now. So that's why we want to keep checking with you guys pretty much quarterly. I think would be the kind of plan for this project. That's all.
Also,
Oh,
this may be a really dumb question, but I mean, do we know what the footprint of the proposed public works building is?
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
We
that's
went through a whole.
Okay, I wasn't here for that, but I'm just wondering, yeah, because I don't want to refill and dig it out a year.
Right,
later.
and that's their iterative process too.
Okay.
But we thought about 10 acres, but that's where DSL is gonna come in, and they could have some enhancement areas that reduce the net developable area
Yeah.
down to 9.9, we don't know, but we think about 10 acres of a developable area for the public works facility, but that even in itself, DSL permits are gonna determine what's left at the end.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about this property since I've been on council, so probably like 8 years ago. And I remember we had a few options on like how to clean it up. It was like take everything out, and there was another option of leave it all there and bury it more. So which one are we doing?
We're doing the full cleanup, and that was because there used to only be a $2.5 million EPA cleanup grant, which wasn't enough. So for the sites the
So
city
because we got the
selected,
5 million.
let's just get rid of it, half of it, and haul it off and bury the rest here, and then we got a 5 million grant opportunity, we just went for.
Opportunity for
Yeah.
y'all. Okay.
The other, Kim, the other thing is if we would have went the other route, we would continue to have to be doing the same way. Also, so we'd have a cost there.
Liners.
And one thing I just want to add, Jason and I have been talking about the clean water service line. We have 4 years with this grant. And sometimes projects get held up. And the last thing we want to do is wait on a sanitary sewer line to go in. If it's not looking like it's going to come together, then we're going to have to
Yep.
go. So just so you guys know
Might
that.
have to dig twice.
Well, just
Got it.
$5 million.
Follow within the grant guidelines.
when construction inflation, it gets worse and worse every year. So, any other questions before we move on to the next item?
Where's the dirt going?
Hillsborough.
Yeah,
A
and
couple landfills in the
Yeah.
state that we can take.
it's our understanding, unless we find something that surprises us, it should be going to Hillsborough landfill.
All right. All right, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
All right.
If only you lived as close as you used to, John, you just have a,
I'm-
a short drive to.
I'm only about 8 miles down the road.
Oh, that's-
No, I haven't, you can't get rid of me that easy.
All right, our next item is the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce business plans.
Grab
We'll take about 3 minutes while you get set up. and We're gonna grab our dinner, which we're right a little bit late, so.
It's in the kitchen.
Probably adjourn. Someone.
There we go. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So we're on to item number 2. We have Sarah Burke from the Sherwood Chamber of Commerce with us, and I believe we also have our Chamber President in the audience.
He's free to join you if you want him to.
What's that?
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys wanna come sit up here. Go with some arrows.
Put you on the hot seat.
From Cole, our president, and also Martin Rakers from the YMCA, who's on our board. Thank you all for having us. I think I've met everyone several times now since joining the chamber last November, but if I haven't, thank you for the opportunity to come talk today. Like I said, I joined last November. And since then, we've just been, I've been working to kind of operationalize and lift up the chamber and get it into a good position. And so I'm here to talk about this year though, and beyond. Obviously just starting, who are we? You all probably know this for the most part. We seek to connect, partner for growth, and be a champion of the business community, creating a stronger Sherwood. We market and advocate for our members. Obviously, our members are our number one priority, the business community. Who are we? You can see us all, our smiling faces right there. Our president, Christopher, we have a treasurer, Mark, and we have many other amazing board members. We're so lucky to have a diversity of larger businesses and small businesses represented. We were lucky to get 3 new board members this year. I'm very excited about them. Stephen Quick, you may know from Merchant Services. He does a lot of, I think he does all the chambers in Washington County, all of their merchant services. And so he's a great resource for us. Larry Morris is just a great longstanding, in the business community of Sherwood. And Rachel King, she represents King Heating and Cooling, a wonderful small business. So she's such a hard worker already and coming in the chamber every week and volunteering. So I'm so thankful to have all of our new board members. So we're talking about where we're at right now. We are obviously at the top there. We are rebuilding, I believe. I think I've been going out and meeting with all of our neighboring chambers. I think I've covered all of Washington County now. I'm now moving south, trying to meet with Chehalem and McMinnville, and met a little bit with McMinnville recently, just to look at best practices for the future. I think the chamber concept, everyone's re-envisioning it. I think Sherwood, we have our own flavor. And I think that's really what I'm finding is like everyone's a little bit of their own unique snowflake and their town and their culture. But we are trying to figure out what that means for us in the future. And I think we have a really solid foundation with our community to keep growing. And the next phase being like sustaining and growing and in the future, what the gold standard looks like. But to be honest, I think we're still looking at what that looks like. What do we want to do? And I think you'll see some flavors of that in the presentation. 2025 goals, consistent and smooth networking, marketing, communications, and events. I feel like I've gotten great traction with this already. Continue to operationalize and uplift and modernize the chamber. Partner with the city on economic development and enrichment. Already having such a wonderful partnership with Eric and just continue. So achievements, I just wanted to highlight some of these. I put up there, we have 400% more engagement in a lot of our marketing efforts, which I've seen those statistics and I'm really happy. I know 10% or 10 of 0 is a bit, I don't want to like overinflate it, but I'm seeing numbers of engagement and looking at our stories on marketing of 50 to 100 people rather than previously we're under 10. So I think that is coming along nicely. Doing 2 networking events per month with growing attendance. We're averaging, 20 to 30, but we've seen as many as 50 plus in recent months, which is so encouraging.
It's getting back to
I'm good.
COVID levels.
And a good mix. I feel like we have a good mix of attendees of small businesses and large businesses representing, and thank you all for coming. We always have someone from the city, someone from the school district comes and talks about what's going on with the school. We've had 20 new members since I started in November. Wow, happy about, excited about, I know. I was looking back at my stats. And it's still growing. We've got a couple of new ones even this month, 3 new members this month, which is great.
What's your total membership?
About 167, which I'm finding is quite high for how small we are. And visiting that's what's been so encouraging to me is visiting the other chambers and then talking about our numbers. When you look at the number of people that have actually paid in the last 365 days, you hear a lot of numbers of 300 to 500. But when you really talk to the other chambers, we're actually kind of comparative to Tigard, which is awesome.
Especially given they have so much more business than we do.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to our community and how we love to support each other. I've been working personally on a lot of operational uplift, reducing monthly expenses. We are a nonprofit, as you all know. Phones and printers and leasing. I'm looking at daily rentals for inside. I'd love to, I haven't been too shy about talking. I'd love to move us eventually into something more central downtown. I think we have some opportunities there. Documenting our processes and migrating all our documents to the cloud. We're going to be launching a new website soon. We created 2 new, we had an offsite recently to talk about strategy, which was really great. And we created 2 new committees, which I desperately need, membership and events. The membership, just the continual maintenance of our membership. And then we obviously have some big events that we put on. So getting that help. Award luncheon success. I think a lot of you were there. We had such a great, I took a chance and I changed that to a lunch from a evening gala. I felt, that, I got a lot of feedback from the community, from the business, from our members about the process. And I felt like, lunchtime was more economical for people. It wasn't interrupting their weekends. People's time is so valuable these days with their families and activities. I heard a lot about the nominee selection process and the awards. So I tried to make that as transparent as possible. So I polled the community, the whole community of Sherwood for nominees, but then the members of our chamber voted. I had some phone calls that said we had never voted on anything before. So I was so excited that they were so excited from some of our old historical society people calling. And a nominee, the nominees all got one attendance for free, which was a big thing in the past, saying, we got nominated, we still have to pay. I think it was still a fun and formal award ceremony where everyone felt celebrated. So I think just modernizing some of these events and things are really helping. So for 2025, you can see here, we have the January, we had the awards luncheon and we have the cruising sponsor and vendorship forms out. That has been kind of a big uplift for me because I'm trying to digitalize everything and has been paper, which I'm still realizing like people still do want a paper one, but trying to get everything into Google and move everyone away. And then I'm looking to launch the new site. It's actually going live this Friday, which I'm so excited about. It's not going to be the full site, but it's going to have all the cruising information on it and a big template for our new site coming. And I'm working on the SEPA. I'm going back and forth on that. June, obviously I want to launch the full site by June. We will have cruising, and then July we'll have our golf tournament and the Directory of Sherwood, which comes out every year. October strategic planning for 2026. And then I'm trying to line up all of our networkings for the year. I've seen that as a really good best practice at other chambers, is that then you can publish the whole calendar and people have things they look forward to or they plan for that. So I'm working really hard. I have all the way till September. Almost there.
What your calendar reminders? Amazing.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of good feedback about just sending it to people's calendars. And then, even if you don't
I'm like,
yeah, so little things I think that are helping, and then we have ribbon cuttings. We still have a couple. Walmart's having a grand reopening coming. The Springs is having kind of commemorative ribbon cuttings since they didn't get to have one in there. They opened during COVID. And I also want to get your city talk is on the same day as this.
April 16th.
Yeah, I want to
Right
get that
after.
on. I'm gonna have to send that out as a calendar invite. Studson is a new business coming into the Sherwood Commerce Center. I'm trying to remember all the names of the. And so they're excited. They're really excited to have you all there. They're having a big celebration. They have a PR firm coordinating it. They are construction helmets and
they're
yeah.
like per side in the back, and they've got cameras and all kinds of lights and stuff on.
So it's the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
50, 60 people.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then the hotspot's coming in, that is actually, I'm really excited about this. That is coming into the Langers
Oh, yes.
Center, and it's going to be, it's a huge spot, but it's, the main piece of it is, painting ceramics, which we've heard about, right? But they also do mosaics, they also do slime, they also do, so there's like, they can do paint nights. So it's a little bit of everything, crafts for people. And so I think that'll be really cool. And the swim school contacted me today also, so I'm sure they're going to be coming on, which is great.
Bridge opening sometime.
Okay.
Right there.
Yeah.
And they need some helmets.
Exactly. New website. I'm so excited about it. You can kind of see it at the top. I'm trying to modernize it. I don't think I have the best picture of the Sherwood sign that I can get. I'm gonna try again, but I love this Sherwood sign. So it was funny. We had like maybe a 2-week long text message going in the board group trying to figure out where this sign was. I had this picture, but I did not know where this sign was. We finally found it, right? It's out on the way to, yeah.
It was moved.
It was moved, yeah.
I bet Dave Gilmore has a great picture of it.
This is
Yeah.
Dave Gilmore.
Oh, it
This
is.
is
Okay.
his, but we could not figure out because I want to get a picture that's a little bit farther
Yeah,
back so
I
we
see.
can see the whole thing. So anyways, new website, but you can see up there, join about us, find a business. And again, I looked at probably 24 websites, including like the big ones like City of New York and things like that. And here's what I want to have inside the website. In the join, the benefits, become a member, advocacy, about us, our normal stuff, finding a business. And then the city of Sherwood, I do want to have a little bit more there. Your guys' website, the community economic development and the library. And then I want to have some visitor information, which we haven't had previously. Dining and activities. I see that on a lot of other chamber sites. And then obviously our events. The drop downs from all of our website.
Is there a member only area?
That is the future.
Okay.
I want to get that. Yeah, definitely coming. So this is at the top, it just says other things that I'm involved in or we're involved in. Obviously, we're the visitor center, so we do get people walking in there. I know it's surprising. And we're a little bit tucked away right now, but we get a lot of phone calls every week, a range of items. A lot of people wanting to understand kind of the city processes, about, you know, permitting, or I'm opening up like a pop-up bakery. What do I need to know?
Here, let me direct you to the city.
Yeah, the walk-ins are a lot of people who are thinking about moving to Sherwood. I would say at least 3 or 4 a month, walking in there just to ask like, what's the best neighborhood to live in or whatever. So I have to kind of like filter through the real estate people, like, you know, all the people that are members, and make sure I take them out. Everyone's a little different, but it's kind of fun. And then I end up spending a lot of time with them, just talking about all the different areas of Sherwood. I've been visiting all the chambers. We talked about that and kind of talking about figuring out best practices and trying to take the best nuggets. The Directory of Business Creation, I was able to pull that off in the fall. Connecting the high schools to professionals and community and job shadows, that one has been really cool. I highlighted one. I mean, I can't remember who's all been at some of the meetings, but there's a lot of restrictions now about, it used to be like you could do an internship and it was no big deal, but there's so many restrictions now, especially with any type of manufacturing facility and the legalities, that it's very difficult to do. But you can do job shadows. And so I'm working hard to help connect some of our business owners with what those would look like. But also bringing professionals into the high school. I've had a couple of other people speak. So that's been really fun. Main Street Association and Robin Hood, trying to get closer to them. Christopher and I just recently met with Main Street and Robin Hood to kind of talk about, you know, how we can improve things. What are we hearing across all of the different festivals, and how can we make those better? We want to have another one of those meetings soon. Actually, probably should get that on the calendar. Revitalization of Walktown, I've been included in that. That's been wonderful. Thank you for including that. I've been trying to really be a positive influence on those meetings and rally the troops as much as we can. Coming to city council meetings, we're loving doing that. And Christopher and I try to attend. And then, like I said, connecting new businesses to location opportunities, get a couple of or people contact me. I've been trying to keep in touch with everyone in the especially downtown area about what's available. And connecting new businesses to your city processes. So just kind of some of the other things I'm doing. So I wanted to highlight our finances. You know, I think this shows we are truly a nonprofit. We literally almost made no money last year. But no, I think this is like showing that, you know, we are really like in that place where we are looking to grow this next year. And please let us know if you have any questions from this. I think no one's been shy to say about that we didn't make as much money on cruising as we had hoped last year. There was a couple of things. I mean, I think everyone did their best and pulled it off, but I think, you know, it is what it is. I think we did great, and we will just continue to grow. But we are definitely looking to find alternative. Well, one, we want to grow our membership, but two, I think there is opportunities for alternative streams of revenue for the chamber. And we just have to figure out what those are that are best for us. Pretty much every single chamber has an alternative stream of revenue that is not membership and not events. And they're all very unique, very unique. So I think we got to figure out what that means for us. Because I think that's how we can grow even further and just make sure that we have a little bit more of a safety net.
Can you give some examples of what those?
Yep, I mean, some of them put on multiple magazines rather than just a directory. Some of them do travel trips, which I've gotten feedback from that might be something we want to bring back to Sherwood. Some of them put on leadership universities. Some of them have fundraised to buy the building that they're in. And some are subsidized differently from the cities. It's just, it's a real mix of things, but I think that there is more opportunity for us.
I was gonna say, so some of the ones that I was looking at did, essentially they had like a SEO expert that, you know, was contracted to do it, but you could buy into it and, you know, he would do it for everybody at a certain price kind of a thing. And so
Search engine optimization.
yes,
For-
yeah, but you know, or other kind of things like that, where it was like, I don't have, as a small business owner, I can't put up my own merchandise, and so there's somebody that the chamber contracts with that they get, revenue off, not only the design of it, but literally every piece of merchandise sold through the website, so.
Yeah, so I think in continuing to optimize our expenses around our events and our operations, but then finding what those alternative revenue sources are, I think will continue to help us grow our bank.
Hold on the membership side, are there tiers based on the size of company?
There are.
Things like that, and we
Yep.
looked at maybe some of those, or?
Yeah, I mean, we have, well, and also there is a lot of other. There are a lot of other opportunities in that area also. I mean, one thing that I was talking to Tim about recently that Tualatin has created is their titanium membership, which is around large businesses.
Yeah.
And it is a higher tier. It's for networking just with large businesses. They have their own, and there's a bunch of benefits with that. I don't think we want to like steal that concept, but I think there is something in that. And also Tualatin has offered, which is on the table with our board, for any new titanium members to give us $500 and they become automatic members of Sherwood. So it's $2,500. And they would give us that 500 of that. And because we're so close in partnership, I think it's a great deal. I think our board's still trying to decide what they want to do with that. I mean, I'm one person, so there's only so much time I have in the day to go out and like meet with everybody. I try to do it every week, but if they're automatically become members to the Sherwood, I think that's.
I mean, it makes sense because the large businesses serve so many communities, right? I mean, just because they exist in one.
And if you got a reciprocal program, then you can have some like joint subgroups.
Totally. And Tualatin, literally it's Tualatin Sherwood. And Leah, the Tualatin Chamber and Leah, they are amazing to us. They are always trying to include us in as much as possible. They have been great mentors to us. So I think this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, and it is something that's on the agenda for our next board meeting, so we'll be having a pretty in-depth conversation about it. And with regards to like membership tiers, fall of 2023, we did go back through, reevaluate those, and put new ones in place. That being said, as we're looking at, and as far as having conversations with more chambers in our area, we may go back and look at those again here shortly. So we know we're not too far off of what other chambers are offering, but there might be enough of a difference there that we may want to take a look at it again before year end.
Yeah, and in reality, when I talk to business owners, it's always, well, if they're not a member, it's like, well, I wasn't getting, $500 worth of value for the.
That's
for the
what
cost.
yeah.
And so I wouldn't want to raise it in that point. I would rather raise the services and then come back and say, did you know? We've also got these things and start unveiling that.
Yeah, that's what's important to me is that they actually feel the value and that what we're saying is what they're actually getting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I think that kind of speaks to your pyramid piece that you have on the front where we're talking about kind of what our approach has been. And right now it truly is that rebuilding piece. So that when we get to that point of looking at making change, at that point, we should have new things in place that will ensure that people see the value in it.
Great.
I can imagine people are already seeing the value just through your social media presence with them.
Yeah. And I've got so much positive feedback about that. And the networkings, I feel like I've been trying to be very diligent about, making sure that they see the value, that everyone's able to introduce themselves at them, or we have a speaker, or we have been doing some really great at the YMCA in January. He did kind of a roundtable about the future of YMCA. And you get to get feedback from the members, but also I thought it really brought up a lot of cool things. I mean, I think people who are part of the chamber, the businesses, they really want to help each other. They started talking about how can we really help each other. It just was really cool. So I think there's so much opportunity.
How have the multi-chamber officers been?
They've been huge. Actually, I was just going to mention that. So once a quarter, we're doing one with Tualatin, Lake Oswego, Westland, and Wilsonville and Sherwood. And I mean, these are big. There's probably like 75 to 100 people there, which is just cool to see, you know what I mean? Just to see for everyone to be able to mingle, of course, as people. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, those have been really cool. I've offered to host one soon and I'm excited about that. So yeah, those have been cool. So we're just talking about, I put this up here just because, I mean, it's part of why we're trying to fundraise and why we have asks in this, but, my current salary is 65,000. The survey was done in 2023. I don't think it's gonna be any less than this, but the lower range of this is 75,000. So we're trying to get me to 75,000 by the end of the year. We'll see. It's gonna be based on like how we do with everything. But I just trying to be transparent about some of the reasons why we're raising money. So our asks TLT grant funding for 2025. As you know, you guys were able to help us with that last year. And as I understand, it's a part of a better, most Chamber of Commerce's get TLT funding, even the ones across the country. I had a sister one visit from Pennsylvania and we talked and they got, so hoping to get that grant money again. We are gonna submit a CEP fund application for cruising. Just to be 100% honest, we didn't even know that was something that we could submit for. We're still learning what we can even submit for. We didn't even know.
In 2 weeks.
I know. And Kristen kind of opened her eyes to that a couple weeks ago, in the last board meeting. She's like, there's multiple. We're like, really? Let us know.
So the chamber got some a few years ago to do some of the remodeling of the places that they are no longer in. And that kind of stuff to sort of use that as a work share, people could come to. If that idea ever took off.
Yeah, I think we are looking at right now one monthly, like someone would come in and actually like use part of it pretty much full time. And
Not just a stop.
not just a stop and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they would come in and it's looking pretty good. And I think she's probably gonna take it. The building over by Trees sold. I don't know if you guys heard this, but anyways, there was like 9 mental health professionals in there. They're losing their spots. So we may acquire one of those. So that's a great opportunity. Yeah. Yeah.
Where?
Over by Trees.
By trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she said the building sold and there were 9 of them in there. And so they're all trying to find places. Yeah, so I'm keeping my eyes. Yeah. Mhm. And then we would love city representation on our board of directors. At some point, we would love to have one of you on there. We would love to be able to kind of have you in all of our executive sessions so you can hear everything. I think your input would be very valuable. So coming up, let's see here. Oh, for the future, more diversified membership into industrial and larger businesses. I talked about, obviously we're looking at what that means. Ambassadors, Stephen Quick, who joined, he actually has led ambassadors. This is the reason why I'm excited to have him at other chambers. And so he is helping to start that, which would help us a lot. It would really help with volunteers. They could help me with my networkings. It would be really awesome. Membership software, Taylor, giving members easier access to payments and reminders. Board recruitment, we do actually still have a couple spots open, but also we have 2 of our members, Mark and Nina, their terms are coming up. And so we would love to replace them. Alternate revenue sources, like we talked about, most other chambers have alternate revenue sources beyond members and income, member income and events. So we definitely want to explore that. My presentation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Questions?
I really appreciate the presentation and hearing about the status where you're at, and where you're trying to go.
I really liked your presentation. It gives us a good insight of what's, going on in the chamber, what you guys are trying to accomplish, where you are. I love the transparency.
Yeah.
This is it. We can make my money. And I don't think, we don't pay our executive director as much as probably we should.
And I'm very realistic, and we talk about it. We're gonna do it based on if we reach certain goals by the end of the year, then we're gonna try and get me to that. But if we don't, it is what it is. Yeah.
And I do like working with Main Street. That's the big thing when I heard, when I talked to them, whoa, Robin has come out, and they said, well, it's actually a net loss for us. And it just blew my mind because we got all those people that are cruising and all those people that are at Robin Hood. I do not want, their philosophy was, well, why should we help with an event that's costing us more money, to even help put on? So you may look at you know, we talked, and again, you've probably already done all this, but we talked about potentially having some signage that was out in front, you know, pointing people into the bakery, pointing, hey, there's coffee
Yes,
and,
we
you know,
talked
this stuff.
extensively about that at the
Yeah.
meeting, actually. That was like
Great.
probably the big thing we talked about and how to help with that. I mean, especially Robin Hood, he has a ton of ideas about, you know, can we do one of those stamp programs, you know, before it, so people, you know, so they can go visit, kind of like what Main Street just did, or we have a bunch of ideas.
Great,
Yeah.
because I know that for the CEP things especially, we like doing capital expenditures, and so if that signage or something would, I mean, I don't wanna, obviously, you guys can apply for whatever you want, I'm just saying, one that kills two birds with one stone on that would be great.
Yeah, we're also looking at placing the vendors differently and doing them
Oh,
all
yeah.
the same. Like both of the events do it exactly the same. But if we place the vendors, we still have to find out if this is gonna be okay. But these are just like kind of things that we're
Yeah.
exploring in the middle of the road, back to back, then it wouldn't be right in front of the businesses.
Oh, we've
We've done it, we can't do it.
No, we haven't,
Oh.
we talked about that since last year.
Okay,
about
yeah.
We have to just solve the fire exit.
Fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But that would at least get people away from the front.
yeah, because then they'd walk this side where the businesses are and see. the
Yeah.
fence. I thought it was an amazing idea. I remember
Yeah.
Alex from the Hero brought that to us.
Yeah.
Or to just understand what the fire access means.
Yeah,
So maybe you know, you do still do back to back, but one side is, it's got they're in the parking of the opposite side, and then the other side is in
yeah.
that lane of that side. I don't know how much space is required for fire access.
I feel like you could do it, yeah, if you pushed everything over to one side of the street and then the other side of the street being empty.
Oh, instead of right in the middle, yeah, just all the way to one side,
But then one side.
but facing.
But no, because they're facing out instead of in.
Yeah.
So
Certainly one might be better than the other.
No, it's okay.
Actually, part of the conversation we were having, is we were sitting with Main
But
Street.
the good thing is, everyone wants to improve it for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is definitely, I mean, we literally talked for an hour about how to like make it better for those business owners and how to communicate with them and like to make it better, so.
Because I don't think anybody doesn't care.
Oh,
The
yeah,
impact on our businesses and.
we definitely want to try, you know, we'll see what the reality is, but we're definitely trying.
Great, well, I really appreciate the presentation and conversation, and I love the fact that you're looking at ways of bringing businesses that traditionally haven't participated in the chamber into it. Manufacturing and some of our large organizations out there, so that was it, what was the new one?
Stetson,
Stetson. It's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm excited to see
Yeah.
that, and they're really putting on a big deal up there. I gave them all your email addresses, because they were asking me for dignitaries, which I thought was so cute.
The product was good. On one side.
Yeah.
Because as we move forward, I mean, we have 200 acres of industrial in Sherwood West, you know, and we've had a lot of success bringing a lot of jobs, so. I love that you're looking at that and that the chamber's looking to figuring out how do we align with the city, and be a partner in that, because. When Eric's out there trying to bring the big whales in, it's great if we have a chamber that is showcasing our community and helping us do that.
And I can already tell you and Eric must talk a lot. I mean, just, you know, have you bantered off with each other? You guys are communicating. Yeah.
And we actually had an opportunity to go to McMinnville together and tour. Yeah, it was cool. It was like the city planner from their economic city planner and then their chamber person. And so it was all of us together.
Cool downtown.
It was so cool too. And just like,
Main Street program.
Yeah.
oh, they do. They're also jealous of our curbless
Oh,
sidewalks.
Oh.
Just like, that was a big hot deal there.
It's awesome. We didn't do it everywhere, and I kind of was a little.
Awesome.
Well, any other questions? Well, awesome, thank you very
Yeah, of
much,
course, thank you.
appreciate it, we'll, obviously, we'll have some more conversations.
Yeah.
About the ask, and we'll get back to you. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Another.
On the boring side, how? Yeah, last night, right there.
More
Ugh.
frustrating.
Yeah. Hot topic, that's for sure.
Perfect timing, so hard to do.
It's already frustrating.
Thank you.
Pass those down. The spreadsheet is getting out of control.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You.
Is this the spreadsheet? Okay. It's much easier to read than mine. Oh, half by 11. I figured it out.
Not gonna work. I did the same. So reformatted here.
All right.
Oh, yeah, this is helpful. Thank you. I'm reading it on my phone.
All right, we're gonna go ahead. Are you ready? Awesome. We're gonna started on our third item for our work session tonight, which is housing bill updates. For those listening, or watching this recording in a couple days, it's the long session down in Salem right now, so our legislature is very busy, with lots of bills. I think they have close to 4,000 bills. 5,000 bills submitted, which was crazy. One House rep submitted 300, all by and large, is some. And there's one of the things that we're very concerned about is the city is preemption of local control over our housing, our land use. In some of the areas, so we pay close attention. We partner with the League of Oregon Cities, the lobby on behalf of cities in Salem, and also the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium, even for the voice this year as well on a lot of these issues. So thought we're kind of almost halfway through the session. I thought it was a good time to have a work session and get everyone else in here up to speed on kind of what we're seeing and some of the craziness that's happening down there, right? So Eric, thank you so much. And by the way, Eric has been amazing. It's been a lot of work. Like we're gonna find out the amendments on these bills are coming fast and furious, and we have to analyze them and get feedback back to our lobbyists and to the league and to the MMC. So we're all speaking with one voice.
Eric's full-time job right
Yeah,
now,
and
between like the meetings on Fridays with CFM and then, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying
And your
that.
team too, because I'm sure you're spreading some of that out.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for saying that. And yeah, with that, so as Mayor Rosener mentioned, purpose of the work session, really, I think threefold: inform city council, but also the residents who are listening about what's going on at the legislature. Discuss the impacts to existing city limits and neighborhoods, but also our planning areas, namely Sherwood West, and then that's front and center on our minds. And then as a group, just discuss any next steps and actions that we might want to take. As Mayor Rosener mentioned, we're about halfway through the session right now. There was a deadline for, I won't get into all the details, but basically a bill had to be scheduled for a work session to stay alive. And there's sort of multiple steps like that where they have to be scheduled for within a certain committee or pass out of that committee. And some of the key deadlines are here. And then the session ends at the end of June. So I'll go over five bills today. 4 of them are really going to go in the general direction of, less local control, less review timelines, faster permitting, things like that. The last one is going to be around funding. So rules and tools, as the mayor likes to say, most of these are going to be rules. One of them is going to be a tool.
We want tools, not rules.
Yes, to be clear, we want
Yes.
tools, not rules.
And it should also mention, there are other bills that just aren't as upfront, and if those rise up, we'll get those to you as well. And there was a lot that it got dropped off because I didn't hit the deadline to have a work session scheduled.
Yep. And I'll say, on that note, yeah, these are going to be the most impactful that I've listed here, but there are others. And so we'll continue to track those as well. And I think as they stay alive, we'll come back or email you guys on the status there.
They have this little trick down there. They'll introduce a study bill that seems pretty benign. And then they'll wait till 3/4 the way down the session, and drop an amendment that's crazy.
Yeah, and then it's hard to track because it looks like nothing. And like Mayor Rosener mentioned, they're changing quickly. The governor's middle housing bill that changed at 3 o'clock today, and this presentation is updated for that, but that's how quickly things can change. And then, yeah, good.
I said, well done getting that up.
Sure. And the last thing I'll say is, that what I'm going to present on is staff's read of these bills. We're not the authors. And so oftentimes when we get into it with the authors and say, hey, what about this? What about that? They clarify things. So this is a staff's read on.
Or they say, don't worry about that.
And then we really gotta worry. This is staff's read on these bills right now, so. Just getting to it, the first one is Senate Bill 974. This is we did one League of Oregon Cities meeting. The Home Builders Association of Oregon was really pushing this bill. It is a concerning one for us. It would require cities to waive standards for building design and orientation, parking and landscaping for any housing development with 20 or more units. That's not density, that's just 20 or more units. So, you know, rolling back the design standards that we adopted, parking, landscaping.
That would include 20 single family houses.
Correct. Correct, yep.
But wouldn't that also have the effect of us saying, all right, we're gonna rezone this area so you can't have, you know, units of more than 19 units?
Oh, they're gonna have a bill trying to.
Yeah,
they're thought ahead on that.
We couldn't do that. I mean, any property of significant size or a multifamily property is gonna hit 20 units pretty quick.
Yeah, unusual or get something under 20 units at the door in raw dirt.
This would include setbacks, design standards, materials.
Setbacks?
This one, there is another one that would impact setbacks. This one right now is building design and orientation is the main one that I'd be concerned about, plus parking landscaping as well, yeah. The other part of this bill would reduce the allowed time or really set limits for the first time on the amount of time engineering has for their plan review. So really quickly, it goes through planning, gets land use review, then they concurrently go through building and engineering review at the same time. Right now, there's no limits on engineering review. This would set limits. They'd be pretty quick. On the bottom right here, I have a quick cheat sheet, if you will, of like what impacts of the city or our staffing and budget are going to be impacted. And this is an absolute yes on staffing and budget. If this passed, you know, the engineering department will be looking at increased fees to make sure we get through these times.
So in a prior life, we had a developer that did a lot of stuff in town. And he would hire the cheapest engineer, architect on the planet.
Yeah.
Then have our staff mark it up with the thousands of changes that are.
Classic approach.
To then give back to these rookies or cheapos to then, so they would learn the code.
Yeah.
Versus knowing it from the start.
Yeah. You know, and I think if we're playing hardball, it would be, hey, if this is gonna pass and it's gonna get into this 45 days, be a 90-day permit issuance, we're just gonna, if it isn't up to snuff, we're just gonna deny it, is how that would play out likely with us now.
Because that's not right. They were big projects and they were so bad. I got my ear bent more than once.
Yeah, I mean, my response, engineering, I'd talk with Rich, who oversees engineering, and say, we just need to start denying these things. And I think that's some of the feedback that we have respectfully for these authors is, you know, you need to be careful that if these bills pass, it doesn't have the opposite effect. Exactly, where actually, maybe you work with us for 100 days and get approval. Under this, you know, 90 days, we're gonna be under the gun, we're just gonna deny it. Is likely how it could.
As the clock, it's this one, you have a clock for every time, you know. You, again, with the serial bad actor, staff would spend a lot of time marking it all up, getting it back to the person. They come back, spit it back, they change some of it. And then we had to mark it all up again. City.
Yeah.
And it was insane.
I feel like there's gotta be a number, like you get 20 markups and then you're out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Increase their fees for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's once the first time or whatever, as soon as I heard, we went through the process to increase fees.
We do have those teeth in our fee schedule and in our policies. So if we got into that today, we could say, hey, look, you know, it's in there. We don't always use that, but
Trying to work with them.
but we can say, okay, we're gonna start charging by the hour for our reviews instead of, you know, so we have the ability to address it. The other concerning part of this is that it would kind of change the definition for housing applications under the land use system. It would make anything related to housing, most applications related to housing, an urban housing application. And it would make that a limited land use decision. What that means is There are limits on public input, public notice, number of hearings that can be held, et cetera. It's basically an expedited land use review. So
Will that go through the hearings officer instead of the?
it's limited land use is typically a staff decision. So the one that concerns me is it would redefine PUDs, planned unit developments, that you guys are familiar with as a limited land use decision. My understanding is that a limited land use decision can only have one public hearing, and that includes in a potential appeal. And so it's really not smart to have your hearing not be the appeal. We would want that to go to you guys. And so it would have to be, the PUDs would be approved by staff, and then there would be one public hearing. That's a limited land use decision, and there are some applications right now that are limited land use decisions. Mayor Mays, you're looking.
I'm just a little stunned with what you just were saying.
About the proposal?
The PUD, they're converting a PUD.
It's proposed in this bill. And I'll go even further, if you will, Councilor Mays. Some comprehensive plan amendments would also be a limited land use decision. So it would be.
Not to say I trust staff, but the nature of a PUD is you get to write your own rules. And granted, what all these different bills, the governor and the legislature, they're screwing cities anyways. But I mean, writing their own rules means, oh, let's change road standards. Let's change everything.
This would bring PUDs into the limited land use decision process.
Wow.
That's insane.
Which doesn't.
That also have the effect of you guys just automatically denying everything and then taking it to us and say.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think with all of the reduced timeline provisions that are in multiple bills here, I mean, we either as a department would need to increase our fees, to increase our staffing, to hit the deadlines, or we would use the staffing we have, be really under the gun, and it would fall to the consultants, like Mayor Mays is mentioning, to get it right so that we could approve it.
It has to be a valid reason to deny it. It can't just be like,
They would probably just have to find the first one.
Yeah.
You know, the real
Exactly.
PUD means changing zoning too. A PUD means starting from scratch and doing their own thing on this piece of dirt.
Yes.
This is
see this causing if it's a staff decision at that point. I can see this causing like issues between staff and councils then, like,
Sure.
you did what? You approved what? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think,
Or everything's gonna bypass planning commission, right? Cause you're gonna have to make the decision and it's gonna get appealed to us. So why the hell do we have a planning commission
We
anymore?
can go down to one meeting. and quit.
I'm out of meetings
Altogether. But I mean,
this
like
is-
that's actually decreasing in a significant way, public input
And the whole.
into the entire process. Community input into the, and these are people on the planning commission who actually spend way more time on any of this stuff than we do. I know I was on it before.
Is it going to decrease the need for planning? That's what you just
Yeah.
said, yeah.
Yeah, and also, yeah, I mean, a lot of the bills, I would say since about 2019 or so, a lot of the state bills have been going in this direction of less discretion by cities. Interestingly, less public involvement, and they're just it's going in that direction.
And we have more bills to go through, and I just want to mention too is, Eric and I talked about this, the impacts on master planning are really unclear because there's nothing in here that exempts master planning.
So I would read to mean it's not exempt.
Well, what it means is it's probably gonna be regulatory in nature, where once the bill gets to, I guess this would be DLCD or LCDC, they're gonna write regulations that will probably address that, and we have no idea what that would look like. And
I think it's a good bet.
it's a good bet that it wouldn't be,
It will not get carved out from master plan.
but we should probably move on to the next one.
Yeah, and the last one I'll say on this is this one is concerning to me as the implementer. It would take effect 91 days after the end of the legislation, which is like, there's basically no time to do a legislative amendment for us to actually adopt these changes. It's basically a direct apply of the state law.
Well, I mean, so this one feels.
This one is one of the more,
Certainly onerous and concerning to me. Is this likely to pass? Like, what's your read on that, or do you have one?
It's still alive. I'm not sure, and I think that's where we need to lean on our our lobbyists and figure out. what
Yeah, the league's come out against it, MMC has.
What was interesting was when I was waiting to testify, I was listening to all the testimonies, one of the things a lot of people said was lack of public participation. And so they had staff come back on and clarify, oh, there's still public participation, and they have to mail notices out to anybody 100 feet.
Yeah, 100.
Oh, yeah, 100 feet.
That's nobody, like, that's a street.
Yeah.
Or two houses in the.
Our code now is 1,000. So just to make sure we can get through this, the next one is Senate Bill 6-1. We're on the -1 amendment. This one is really going after the building program, not planning or land use. So it would require building departments to issue permits for middle family and single family residents within 45 days of a complete application. I did check in with our building department. Sherwood right now is about 21 days, about 3 weeks to issue a permit. So we're still beating this, which is
On average.
on average, yep, which is good. It would require partner agencies, if they're commenting, to complete their review within 10 days. And then this is the really concerning part. If the building department or the partner agency fails to make a decision within that time frame, the permit is automatically approved. And they're really, at least in this -1 amendment, there wasn't anything that would clarify or demonstrate where responsibility laid. Is it with the jurisdiction, is it with the builder?
If you're waiting on the partner even.
What if the application doesn't meet the code?
Yeah, and that's like very concerning. The application, at least
There's
that's
a fire exit, oh, well, it's approved.
it would be approved, and that's where I get to, well, who has the liability? Is it the builder? Is it the city? Is it, and like, for the layman resident, I mean, they purchase a home and then figure out, worst case scenario, it gets all the way through, gets occupied, and then you've purchased a home and have a loan on it and it doesn't meet code. That's terrible. It's just a terrible situation to be in.
That's a
So,
terrible bill.
Yeah.
That part of it anyway. Like,
Granted, if it didn't meet code through the building process, we get tagged on inspections, wouldn't it?
well, I think that's a great question. That's my first question is, if the plan is approved without meeting code and our inspector goes out there and says, hey, this isn't meeting code. Exactly, that's an open question. And can it keep going to occupancy without meeting code?
Wow.
This one feels, at least in Sherwood, and maybe there's a problem in other cities, it feels like a solution in search of a problem. Like, is there cities that's sitting on these things for months and years? Or?
Yeah.
I think that's the
Yeah.
thing. There are a few bad actors, so they're punishing us all, and I think the automatic approval is what they're really after.
Yeah.
Not the just a short time frame.
With all due respect, City of Portland takes a long time. And there's a lot of the interest in home building and development world is focused on Portland, and they're not acting quickly on these permits. And it's that there are I've just heard of very long delays there.
So heaven forbid they just apply a piece of legislation for Multnomah County.
Yeah, or attached to the automatic issuance is insane.
Moving on, just a few more. This is House Bill 2138-2. This is the governor's middle housing bill. This one was updated 3 o'clock today. It has been scaled down pretty significantly since it was originally released. It would, this is non-inclusive, this list here, but it would change the definition of cottage cluster to include attached units. Right now, cottage clusters are only detached, so it would allow row homes, but it would still require them to be small units. So the footprint of the structure, even though they're attached, they'd be fairly small.
But they
And then
didn't,
the height would
they
be,
took the definition of what small is out. So that could be impacted in the regulatory process.
yes, the rulemaking would determine what
It says small.
small.
Yeah, because it used to say 900 square feet.
My small and your
So-
small.
So it could be a small 2-story.
1.5 would still be
We
the
kept
height.
that. They haven't put the variance for height, and we restrict height. So.
Yeah.
Yep. This one is one that got scaled back pretty significantly, but it would not allow cities to require a transportation impact analysis or require offsite improvements for middle housing developments under 12 units. That would apply to infill and redevelopment only.
The original bill was just all housing.
Yeah.
The 12 is fine.
That really brought it down to reality. It would allow additional middle housing units on a site where affordability or accessible ownership requirements are met. So, you know, our code right now state we're gonna have density limits, but on a site, but if the builder is able to deliver an affordable unit at a certain metric or an accessible unit, meaning like ground floor ADA, then those would be just bonuses that aren't part of the.
And that's on any site, not just a cottage cluster site.
It would be any middle housing.
Any middle.
Yeah, this bill is really catered towards middle housing, yeah. And then one that is fairly concerning to me, because I think we just don't know what would happen in the future. The bill would direct LCDC to undertake rulemaking that prohibits or restricts siting and design standards that prevent or discourage middle housing. So you recall in our middle housing regulations, you know, we as a city were able to say, here's when and where middle housing can occur. And that was subject to reasonable siting and design standards. What this would do is give LCDC the authority to say, if you do this or you do that, that's not reasonable siting and design. So I think we'd probably be okay. I don't think we did anything crazy that really restricts or prohibits middle housing, but if there was something.
Anytime the legislature directs DLCD to do anything, you should
Gotta be
be very afraid.
Be a little concerned. And then to Councilor Mays' concern earlier, there is also a provision in here, direct LCDC to review what is permissible discretionary criteria, which would play into the PUDs. And so really high level right now, developer can do clear and objective path, meaning our code is clear and objective, or they can do the discretionary path, which is the PUDs. And this would allow LCDC to determine what type of discretionary authority cities would have under the discretionary path, as far as I'm reading it now.
Wow.
I will say on this bill, it's probably the least onerous of the housing bills. It started out pretty bad. The governor's office, to her credit, has been engaging with cities. We've had meetings with Matt Scheibel, her lead on that. So they have been refining it, and it really is. I still don't like it, but I do give them credit for working with us.
Yep.
But I think what they're trying to do is fix the problems that came out of the variance bill that passed last year.
Yep, and the middle and the HB 2001. I think we see this bill as tweaks to HB 2001.
Yeah, the other bills that are being driven out of the legislature, we've had much less access, much less ability to talk to people and get changes implemented.
And the next one, House Bill 2258. This is also a governor-sponsored bill. This is it's a little hard to understand what it actually is, but it would basically allow the state to approve building plans, so like actual, construction plans, but also for those construction plans on a specific lot, under what circumstances it can be built. So basically it's trying to get pre-approved plans, I think is the best way to say it, and pre-approved sites where these things can just be approved. So it would
Including manufactured homes.
Basically all types of homes.
Yeah.
So it would supersede our design standards, our parking standards, our tree removal. It would supersede everything. Basically, it would say if there's a lot that's this size, it has slopes that are less than this, meaning it's a reasonable buildable site. And this home can fit on there. Basically, the city has to approve it. And I think the idea is that you get a certain number of these and they can be reproduced over and over again.
So if you have deep pockets and you're a large developer, you go get like 8 designs approved. And then you just walk in and saying, we're just doing these 8 designs through this 200 acres and we would have little to no control over it.
And is there any consideration for those being affordable designs, like affordable housing, because those would be $1 million homes? Or is the goal on this to, hey, we're gonna have reproducible things to keep costs down?
Not that I'm aware of.
Nothing in the legislation.
That's probably the way they're selling it, but it's probably not what will actually happen.
If my memory is correct, it would be a lot up to 20,000 square feet. So those are pretty large
When we
lots.
talked to Matt about this, part of what caught the governor's ear was what we've been talking about is like experimenting with new building types and. Well, we told them on the phone that great, we'll create zoning innovation zones where we can do that. But please don't apply it to every single lot in the city where you can build a home.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't do us any good to get, 20 McMansions that are all, over $1 million, right? And I want some affordable housing and in an area that's kind of, that's the nature of the neighborhood, right?
But as this is written, there's no affordability
Yeah.
requirements. Now, in
That's what
rulemaking,
made sense being at the governance bill. Do you think she would have put some sort of?
Eric, I'm having a dense moment. Will you, LCDC may set conditions related to permit cost. Will you explain that sentence to me? For some reason, it's just not making sense.
Yeah, I mean, the LCDC would set how much the city can charge to permit that home.
Okay, and then the impact analysis on public utilities, transportation, design standards, land use limitations.
Yeah.
So they're going to dictate to us essentially.
Yeah, what we can study in terms of the impact of that home on the public infrastructure. And also the design standards and other general land use. So like, I mean, this really is, this one is, I think, it's interesting because I don't know, like, I guess it could be fairly minimal how much this is used and the impact. But if it really gets picked up on, it could be a pretty significant impact, actually, if it gets used, like if a developer, I'll just say if a developer plats out a subdivision and creates lots that this home can go on, that these homes can go on, in theory, then yeah, they just replicate, boom, 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 boom. And our ability to sort of bring in our own code and our own fees and all that sort of stuff, we wouldn't be able
They
to
just come in
do
and
that.
said, this is what we're building.
And how do they know?
Sorry, you have no say.
How do they know what the impact is on our public utilities? 'Cause
That's what
And
I care.
And that's where like where we're at in this legislative process and trying to understand these bills, like we have a lot of questions. So like at what point does this bill supersede our authority, right? Is it only at the building permit phase or is it at the land use phase as well when we start talking about trees and everything else? So
Is it thinking like, sometimes when something's built, you make them do road improvements.
yeah,
That's a public infrastructure.
I think worst case scenario, this would be applied at the land use phase. And the LCDC conditions related to permit cost, impact on public facilities, et cetera, applies at that stage. That would be most concerning. To be honest with you, I don't know if that's the intent, but it's something we should pay attention to.
but the way it's written, LCDC can pretty much do what they want in terms of impact analysis.
This is not.
So,
Yes, and
Let the bureaucrats. They control everything.
You don't know what the hell they're doing.
So yeah, this one I think potentially is, maybe a lot here and there, but depending on what the intent actually is, it could be fairly
Could be
significant.
everything that gets built.
It could be that.
And to end on, I guess, a slightly more optimistic note, 3031.
We're supportive of this.
3031 is for funding for infrastructure for housing, so it fund transportation, water, wastewater, storm. There is a density requirement. I think any of the funding I've seen in the last 2 years, there's always a density requirement. It's usually 17 units per acre. For Sherwood, that would make only our high density zone eligible. So we're at 16 to 24 units per acre for high density. Below that is left.
And meet affordability requirements.
And meet affordability requirements, yes. So that's usually the
What does
other.
that mean? I mean, I'm
How does that
gonna see
define?
some matrix somewhere that's gonna say.
Yeah.
What affordability means,
Yeah.
because that means something different to a lot of people.
Yeah. Usually it's 120% median family income for the
Of
region.
the city or of?
Usually it's the region. Yeah.
Region.
Yeah.
Which make it really tough.
And if you meet the requirements, is this automatic or is it a grant program? You have to apply or?
Competitive.
Okay.
It'd be
It's
competitive.
still programmatic, at least it's not the who's your favorite legislator type program. But it would be a competitive program run by Business Oregon.
Yep.
And they're allocating $100 million in lottery money for it.
Annually?
So lottery money.
Yeah, which for bringing them.
Which means that money will be available for other.
And then the last, I guess, good part, 25% would be for jurisdictions with less than 30,000 residents.
So of the 100 million, only 25%, the city's under 30?
Well, 25% minimum. I suppose you could get more, but.
Not sure. Not sure what the breakdown is
Because-
specifically.
The vast majority of
90%
Oregon
of the
City are under
Good
30.
point. It's a good point. Yeah. I think that's some,
5% would go to Portland, Bend, G.
we can give that feedback.
And the mayor, I mean, I think, you know, the answer, I was, you know, sort of broadcast. So the state's passed a lot of things to try to boost housing production. Just recently. But they're not wanting to let it try to work. They want
To
to,
see what the impacts are before they're ready.
they want to just say, hell with it, we're gonna just keep trying to pass more stuff. Instead of seeing if what, you know, they've already changed so much.
So that's been a key point we've been raising. The LFC is, I am, MMC is, they don't want to hear it. But we are raising that point. We've changed a lot. We don't know if it's working. if
You gotta
it's not
wait
Working
10 years
We,
to
we gotta let
find
it
out.
flush out for a while.
Their eyes, they're like, we don't have time to wait.
So I'm not aware, but maybe you might know something, and again, ask the community. Well, I'm of the opinion the single largest impact to the housing supply in the last 10 years has been short-term rentals, Airbnbs and the like. Has Salem done anything to understand the number of those kind of units that are in the state? And where they're located? I don't think they've done anything to restrict, much less even understand the true impact on the housing supply. Are you guys aware of anything?
Excise tax on anybody that owns more than 3 properties.
I'm only aware that they have not collected that information.
I knew they did something in the late 90s or the 17, University of Oregon did it, but I thought that's worthless.
I know some of our touristy towns and
Limited.
college towns are very interested in this subject.
Yeah.
And so far, the Salem is moot on it.
I just don't know enough to know. I don't think there's any bills right now that are addressing it.
The single largest thing they could do to fix this thing is to re-inject the community of the state with those units.
Just incentivize.
Yeah. So it's a good point. We can take a look. I'm not aware of any.
Ditto. Line. Let's
Solving the wrong problem.
let's not get more.
Cause that's,
more
here's the thing, we build more stuff. The same thing's gonna happen to the new stuff that's built. It's all gonna get snatched up for the.
Especially in certain
Turn
areas.
into rentals.
Especially when they do it anywhere where Airbnbs or.
Yeah.
Private equity.
Go ahead.
So where do we stand with Sherwood West if all of this stuff came into play of pulling back and saying, whoo? Like, our ask has been approved, of course, it's going through. Yeah.
Well, I think it's an appropriate discussion to have. And I think, you know, in terms of the impact, I think we're taking the right approach of assume that there's not going to be a carve out for master planning for Sherwood West. I mean, Sherwood West is going to be a new growth area. So generally speaking, if there are exceptions, if there are any, it's going to apply to like existing. If there is any new development, it's typically going to apply. The master planning is an interesting question. HB 2001, the middle housing and our approach in Sherwood West is going to be very specific to some rulemaking that occurred after these bills were passed. And I talked with our land use attorney yesterday a little bit on this, and it's not a guarantee that there's going to be rulemaking for all these. I mean, usually they say, from what I understand or what she understands, usually they'll say in the legislation and LCDC shall implement or undertake rulemaking that does these things. For a lot of these bills, that language is not there. And so it's as written.
Can we? Has the appeal, when's the appeal to Solon?
Sherwood West. We should hear back this month from DLCD on their position on Metro's decision. So it'll be in the next 2 weeks, likely we'll hear actually.
Can we file that we agree with the appeal and want the decision overturned?
We'll look into
Well, I
that.
thought we always, I thought we
I'm
always-
only half joking.
I thought we always had additional levers though, so we can drag our feet on the master planning, we can drag our feet on annexation into the city and all the other stuff, right? And so we can just say, hey.
I'll lock it.
To a degree, and for what it's worth, Mayor, since we started, with the relook of Sherwood West and did a lot of hard work in the community, I'll just say my broken record. I love light industrial land. If it's sort of flat, I'm willing to make this industrial spot in Sherwood West bigger. If that's a tool, it's a bill available.
I think my recommendation at this point would be is that we have another work session. If we need to, we can have another one before the end of session. People want another update, but we have one after session closes, so we know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And then we have options, and we could just do the planning for the industrial land and until it wait. See what happens with, I mean, we have a lot of options.
Do we have anything scheduled on Sherwood West's planning before these bills would be determined?
We are working on the IGA with Metro and the RFP for a consultant. So our next step on Sherwood West is to implement an IGA with Metro for a grant to go out for an RFP. So that'd be our next step.
Does that happen before these bills would be voted on, or?
It doesn't have to. There's no time. There's no.
So my suggestion would be to do nothing until
With the IGA.
with anything.
Yeah.
Until these bills are determined one way or the other, and then we meet again and determine next steps.
Right.
Land, no?
I think
We're only talking about a month or
we can
two.
do without committing ourselves.
Yeah, I think on the industrial end, if we needed to move quickly after we figure out where this is, we can still do that.
Any other questions? Awesome. All right, we are adjourned. We'll start a regular session
Thank you.
in 5 minutes.